Hello and welcome to the Johnny Gets Cash YouTube channel. This is the 2008 Jaguar X-type that I bought sight unseen from auction. Now when I collected the car, I was a little bit surprised at how bad the condition of it actually was. There was damage to the wing, to the door, to the bumper, generally all over the car. But I decided that given this is a one-owner car with 80,000 miles on it and a very, very high spec, it was worth saving. So far in this series, you've seen me do a host of repairs to the car. Namely, I've repaired, repainted and refitted this front bumper, I've replaced the wing, I've replaced the door, I've done some smart repairs to that rear bumper, and I've given the entire car a light paint correction. It's nowhere near finished yet though, so in today's episode I'm going to be getting on with the final exterior detail, including a wax, an interior valet, so making that cream leather come up as well as it should and feel nice and fresh, and a host of other little bits and pieces to get the car ready for its MOT test. Now you've also seen me do a DIY wheel refurb on these alloys, but since that episode I've done a couple of bits off camera, namely refitting these headlight washer jet covers, dealing with a small scratch that happened to the rear bumper, I think in storage, that's now been sorted, and I've also given the engine bay a light detail. So anyway, today is all about getting this thing ready for its MOT and making it look as good as it possibly can, ready to be advertised. So if you want to see that, stay tuned. So the first thing I'm going to tackle is this interior. Now from this distance it doesn't look too bad, but as I mentioned in one of the very first episodes, there's a few marks on the driver's seat which look to be something like biro pen. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm confident I can get it out and make these seats look much, much better. I mean, this is a really, really lovely complementary colour of interior to go with this chili red paintwork, so I want to make it look as fresh as I possibly can. Also, I know the wood grain effect isn't to everyone's taste, but I think with this car and this colour combination, it works really quite well. The other thing I wanted to mention, which a few of you guys have picked up on in the comments, is the top of this airbag. It seems to be lifted a little, you can see here. Now that isn't because the airbags have been deployed. The airbag light functions as it should. It activates on key ignition on and then turns off as soon as you start the engine. So I've done a bit of research on the forums, and apparently this airbag cover lifting is quite a common fault, and I think it's to do with sunlight and heat. Over the years it just kind of warps the piece itself. Airbag still works fine, totally functional, it's just the way it looks. Now I'm not going to go to the lengths of changing that airbag just for that reason. I'm going to leave it as it is because, as I say, it is functional and airbags have not deployed previously. It's really just, if you come from this angle, you can see it's lifted a little. So aside from that, it's really just a general cleanup. You know, I've said about the leather stuff, but really in here nothing's too bad. I have mentioned a few times this door card was not fitted properly, and some of you guys picked up on it too. You'll notice it is now fitted nicely and it's no longer loose on the door. That's because I've got some brand new Jaguar specific clips. That's all properly reclipped into the door. Of course I had to change the door anyway, so reclipping the card was kind of par for the course. So as I said, first stage, doing this interior. Okay, so that is the interior cleanup now finished, and I'm flabbergasted just how well this cream interior has come up. If you recall, this seat especially was covered in marks which looked like biro or some kind of felt tip or something like that. Either way, I'm very, very lucky. I've managed to get all of that horrible mess out of the leather. There was no real damage in here to speak of, I think I've said that before, but it was just a little bit grimy, and now it's all absolutely perfect. I've mentioned it before, but I'll say it again, everything works in terms of all the interior toys and creature comforts. So combined with it being so clean and fresh looking, it's just such a bonus to this car to have such a lovely, lovely interior. Now, the only bit that was really grubby was that mat. You saw me go to town with the airline and everything to try and bring that pile back. That's still slightly damp, so you can see some markings on it, but once that's dried, it will look all one uniform colour. In the back, again, you can see everything's clean and nice. There's absolutely no issues to speak of. Everything is complete and working. Again, it's just a lovely, lovely place to be. Even the load area has come up very well. Now, it's pretty usual for an estate car like this to have quite a grotty load area, because obviously they spend their lives carrying things. Now, this has had a load liner in it. That load liner will be put back before I sell the car, but I wanted to make sure everything underneath was totally clean, which is why it's out at the moment. But yeah, glad to say everything is, again, damage free and now totally clean. The car smelt perfect anyway, but now it smells even better with that leather treatment in there. I'm really, really pleased with this one. So just one final angle of that beautiful cream interior before I crack on with the next job, which is getting this car ready for its MOT. The reason I'm doing it in that order is because I want to take it to MOT before I clean the exterior and get that finally detailed, because of course the car is going to get quite dirty on the way there. So MOT prep next, then get the MOT done, then it will be the final exterior detail, which I'll show you now. Okay, so pre-MOT checks. It's things like bulbs, wiper blades, making sure the tyres are good. In terms of the underside, things like bushes and track rod ends and things like that. Now, I have had this car on the ramp and I'm pretty confident everything underneath is okay. Absolutely confident there's no corrosion to worry about, because as I said, the only light area of corrosion I've now dealt with, which was purely surface rust. The things I do want to check right now though are the easy bits like bulbs and blades. I do think potentially one tyre might need changing to get through MOT, and even if it doesn't, I think it will come up as an advisory, which I don't really want. So I've spoken to the guys at the garage, they've got the tyre in stock ready to go, and I'll have that done right before the test. But all the other 3 tyres, they're all fine. So really, I just want to go around and check the easy stuff. Now, I'm pretty sure on my first test drive, I said this thing needs an indicator bulb because I've got a fast flash issue, but I'll check that now. Also, there's clearly no number plates on the car. I have got a brand new set ready to go on there as soon as I've done these checks. The other thing I want to mention is, of course, the car doesn't look as bright and shiny as it possibly could. I mentioned just now, but I'm not going to do the final exterior detail and wax until this MOT test has been done, because clearly I've got to drive the car there and back, and it's pretty grotty at the moment where I live, so there's no point getting this thing looking really, really sharp just to then go and drive it down the road and get it covered in mud. So we'll get the MOT test out of the way and then I'll make it look really, really sharp. But for now, let's crack on and do these checks. So far, all bulbs and blades are looking absolutely perfect, with the exception of this near side front indicator bulb right here, and that would of course explain the fast flashing indicator issue that I'm getting. But as far as problems go, this really isn't a big one, so I'm going to crack on and change that bulb now and then test that side of indicators again. Okay, we're back from MOT, and I'm very, very pleased to say that the X-type passed. Not only did it passed without a single advisory, which is really, really good news. It's always so much easier to sell a vehicle with no advisories on the MOT than otherwise. As predicted, I did have one of the tyres changed, which was this offside rear tyre just here. Now, I had the lads do that before even putting it in for test, because I felt that even if it didn't fail, it would have been advised, and I really didn't want any issues for the new owner. I just wanted this to be as future-proof as possible. So basically I had that tyre done before the test, so obviously it paid dividends because the car went through without a single advisory, so that's really, really good news. Anyway, I have been driving on the road to and from MOT, so it's a little bit grotty, but as I said before, it hasn't had its final detail yet anyway, so that is the job I'm going to get on with right now. Okay, so that is the final exterior cleanup now done. It wasn't the most extreme detail anyone's ever seen, of course. It was just a freshen up to make sure that this thing did have its proper coat of wax on it and everything was ready to be photographed and therefore advertised. Yes, I've said I'm going to advertise it now, and I'm sure a few of you who've been keeping tabs are wondering, there's a few little bits and pieces I need to do. Why haven't I done them? Namely, these weather strips. I said in the very first episode these had bubbled up. It's a very, very common thing on these X-types apparently, and pretty much all 6 of them on this car have gone. The front one's ironically not as bad as the rearmost ones, but I am absolutely unable to find a set of these anywhere. I've spoken to a few different breakers, Jag parts suppliers, people who keep new old stock. I just can't get them. Now, in some cases I've been able to see sort of one in a place or two, so I've had a driver's one or a passenger one. What I really can't find is the rearmost estate ones, so this window and the other side. I just can't find those. And the way I see it, if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing properly. So I'm not going to change just one and have all the others still bubbling up. So as they don't cause the doors to leak at all, I'm leaving them on there as they are. They're not the most pretty things in the world, but I'll be completely honest in the advertised description of this car. And if anyone wants to come and see the car on the basis that it does have these weather strips bubbling up, that's fair enough. I'm not going to lie about it, and I'm certainly not going to try and bodge them up and make them look better than they are. They are what they are, and they're on the car. I'm afraid I can't change them, so they're going to have to stay. A little bit of a shame because I've done quite a lot to this car to make it look good, but really, unless you're told in a quick image like this, you wouldn't necessarily notice them straight away, so it's not the end of the world. I mean, there are other little bits and pieces on this car, like tiny little bits of lacquer peel and flake on things like the bonnet, and there's a minor dink on the roof that I haven't addressed. Basically things that if I had stuck to my usual remit of making this car better than new, then I would have done absolutely everything. But obviously this car needed so much doing to it. The plan, as I said in a very early episode, was to make this thing much better, but not better than new. So I haven't gone completely to town on every single element of it, and I hope you understand why. But the bottom line is this: we're now looking at a Jaguar X-type with a full 12-month MOT with no advisories on it. This is a one-owner car with 81,000 miles, full service history, absolutely top spec Sovereign. It's a really, really nice car. It's an automatic 2.2, which I believe is the one people want. Also, it's an estate. I think this car's got a lot going for it. So the fact there's a few minor imperfections, I think people will be willing to forgive that. Anyway,
Looking at prices of these online, they vary massively. You can give a few £100s for an X-type, admittedly not one as good as this in terms of spec and mileage and history, or you can give sort of £6,000 or £7,000 for them still. It's really a crazy market. Now, this car, I believe, should be something between £4,000 and £5,000. I think I'm going to advertise it much less than that. I think I'm going to come in at £3,500, admitting all the minor imperfections and being completely honest about what the car is and where it's come from. I think if a proper person comes along knowing the full story, they're going to want to go for that. Anyway, let's have a little walk around the car and check out how it looks now. And I'll show you the inside, because I think the inside of this car is really its crowning glory. I love the interior of this car. So let's have a little look around. I'll overlay some shots of how it arrived so we can really look back and say it's better than it was. Oh, I wanted to mention quickly, that little scratch I spoke about there on that bumper, I did tell you I repaired it. Proof is there, I have got rid of it, so the scratch is gone, and that bumper's looking perfect again. Anyway, I'm going to do a little walk around, show you the interior, and then I think, you know what, the next thing you're going to hear from me on this car is actually when it's sold. I would normally take it for a test drive just to, you know, round out this episode, but the roads are so full of mud and rubbish at the moment around here. I really don't want to do that and get this thing filthy again before advertising it. Anyway, let's check out these finishing shots. So then guys, that is it. The X-type is now finished and it is ready to be advertised. When I first bought this car, it did look like a bit of a basket case, and I know a lot of you in the comments and some of you who have taken the time to message me, so thank you, have said, you know, what's the point? Why are you bothering with a car like this? This car had potential and I could see it, and I think although it was never going to be a brand new car again, it was never going to be the best of its kind, it did have potential to go back and live more years on the road, and I think I've helped it to realise that potential. It may not be the best example anyone's ever seen, but it's certainly a very, very good example. I think combined with the spec, the mileage, the history, and now that it looks fairly respectable, I think this car, if priced correctly, and as I said before, I'm going to price it relatively low for the market average, I think this will sell quite quickly, and I think whoever buys it will be happy with it. It's a really nice car. I've driven it a fair bit lately, to be honest, and it sounds like a cliche, but it may only be a cheap car, but when you're inside of this Jaguar, it feels like so much more than it is. That interior really is my favourite part of this car. It feels so special. Maybe that's because when I was a kid, my parents had Jaguars and it sort of brings back some kind of memories to me. Maybe I'm nostalgic, I don't know. I think this car offers a hell of a lot for the money, and I think someone's going to be very, very pleased with it. Now, it's not quite advertised yet at the time of filming this video, but it will be advertised very shortly, so I'll have to update you as and when it sells. I mentioned just now that I'd like to have done a quick drive to finish this episode off, but it's so muddy and grim where I am. It really wouldn't be worth taking this thing out and making it so filthy again, having just spent all the time cleaning it. So I'm sorry, you're going to have to just put up with me talking in front of the car for now. But as always, I really do appreciate you joining me on the journey with this car. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it and you're not already subscribed, why not consider doing so? It's totally free, and it does mean that the next car I buy in, you'll be one of the first to know about it, and you'll be able to join me from the very, very first episode and see what I've bought and what trouble I've got myself into. Anyway, I think that covers everything. So as always, thank you ever so much for watching, and I will, of course, catch you on the next one. Cheers.